thank you for having me. I was invited by Angelina Stekling, who heard my presentation on VeleHanden in Arnhem in 2013, and I was really glad that she remembered and invited me to tell you something more about VeleHanden today. When I talk about VeleHanden, I always feel that I have to tell something about the history of the Amsterdam City Archives and our online activities, because it explains how we came up with the idea of crowdsourcing. I will show you a bit of VeleHanden, about all the possibilities, and about what we think why people participate. What motivates our volunteers. And finally, I will show you some results and some concluding remarks. So back to Amsterdam. This is us at the red marker. Since 2007, we are located in a beautiful building in the heart of the Amsterdam city center. I have about 80 colleagues, and together we take care of 50 kilometers of archives. We receive an average number of about 100,000 visitors a year in our building. And online we have about 900,000 visitors. And it's also a special year for us, because since January 1st, 2017, all our scans have become available for free. And before, you had to pay 50 cents to view an image online. So you can imagine that our downloads have increased, and our visits have increased. And well, this corresponds with the trend that less people actually visit the archive and more people visit you online. The Amsterdam City Archives were a bit of early adapters online, at least in the Netherlands, and the first website started in 1998, and this was not more than an online brochure with opening hours and stuff like that. And then we saw an image bank from Getty's, and we really liked it. And in 2003, we launched our own image bank. We call it Beeldbank. And then we got some questions from our customers. They said, yeah, your core business is archives, so why only images? We thought, yeah, that's an apt remark. And the next step was our archives database. It was a catalog of all our archives. Our colleagues praised us, but our customers still weren't happy, because they said, where's the button to see the documents? I cannot find it. Well, that's true. And we started digitizing in 2005 with our scanning on demand service. And today we have more than 20 million scans online. We just celebrated a couple of weeks ago. And this scanning is not a result of just random scanning. If we would scan the archives from A to Z, it would take us, if we would do it at a speed of 10,000 scans a week, it would take us 420 years. So, instead, we set ourselves a mission. And that mission is to facilitate online historical research 24/7. So we use mass digitization. Everything has to be available online. And we invested heavily in 2 online activities. The one is scanning on demand, and the other is crowdsourcing. I won't go into detail about scanning on demand, but the principle is, I think, known. You can request for digitization, and it will take a couple of weeks for the images to become available online for everyone, which I think is better than 420 years. And with crowdsourcing, we asked the general public to help us describe our archives and collections online. And we did this because we found out that people who searched our archives had some vague complaints, like, I cannot find what I'm looking for, it's too difficult, there's too much. So, in short, people do want to find things, but they do not want to search. They want to know the history of their house, find their ancestors, but they do not want to make a study of the administration system of the time. They just want to type in the name or the address. They want an index of all our documents. And now the problem we faced. The average cost of indexing a scan can vary from 3 to 10 times of producing this scan. So it would be absolutely impossible for us to find money to pay for indexing on such a large scale. What we needed for indexing were volunteers, and not just a few, but lots and lots of them. And that is how in 2010 the idea for VeleHanden was born. And I hope this short history illustrates the mission of the Amsterdam Archives and how VeleHanden fits neatly into this mission. And for today, I hope I had made clear that we really connect with your theme of Offene archieven. And let's now zoom in on crowdsourcing. I won't tell you all the ins and outs of the origination of VeleHanden, but I think it's important to mention two things. Firstly, VeleHanden is not our property. We sent out a request for proposal for commercial companies that would not only build the platform, but also maintain and develop it. This to guarantee that the website would not disappear after our funding had ended. It also guaranteed that the technology was available for other institutions. Any institution can rent a spot on VeleHanden and host their own projects. And secondly, we developed VeleHanden in small steps, and from the first moment on, we engaged our future crowd in this process. We realized that we needed to attract a huge and diverse community for crowdsourcing, and we felt that we needed to get to know these people better. And more importantly, that they had a right to participate in the development of it, as they were going to do the actual work. And we just simply asked in one of the city archives newsletters for volunteers to join our project and to help us test the tools. In 2 days, 150 people volunteered. We held meetings in which they tested the tools for data entry, for control, etc., and they provided feedback. And we also used Google Forms to ask their opinions. And all in all, I'm still very happy with this co-creation of a platform. And our software engineer as well, she told us that she wished that all projects could have done that way. And during this testing period, the core of our crowd was formed. People who tested in 2010, 11 are still working on our platform today. At November 3rd, 2011, when we officially sent VeleHanden out in the world to grow, the testers transformed to ambassador of our site. They do all the quality checks and help the new arrivals. And today, VeleHanden counts more than 10,000 members and it still grows daily. These are the figures from last Friday. There have been over 60 projects in which are processed more than 3 million scans. I calculated that this must mean that approximately 15 million metadata records are created through VeleHanden, and I'm still amazed by these figures. And as I just explained, when we developed VeleHanden, we only thought of indexing. But when it was such a success, we thought there must be other tasks that our volunteers can help out with. And this list mentions a couple, and I will show you some examples of different projects we did in Amsterdam, so you just get an impression of all the different possibilities. This is the homepage of VeleHanden. All different projects are listed. I see the colleagues of Landesarchiv pointing. And each project has its own page with instructions, with information about the project, news items, statistics, etc. And there's also a page in which you can see all the different volunteers. It is possible to participate anonymously, but you can enter some information about yourself and your motivation to participate. And this is a screenshot of an indexing project of our population register. It just provides the scan, it navigates through the first line you have to enter, and below there are these fields we decided that we want the volunteers to fill out. So in this case, it's the address, the name, dates of birth and places of birth, of all the inhabitants of that address. Below there are some buttons to help the volunteers with their work. You can find instructions, you can say this scan is too difficult, give me another one. You can communicate with someone who does the controls, so you can make a remark, or you can even post information on the forum, so you can select a bit of the scan and post it on the forum and ask a question. Because we want to show the output of VeleHanden as soon as possible, we have our work in progress indexes. So this is on our own website, the archives database, and each week when the new records are controlled, we put them online directly. And this way the crowd gets to see what they helped create, and mistakes or errors are noticed quickly, so people can learn from seeing the results fast. And it's also very rewarding for the crowd, because the production is taken in use directly. This is an example of an image tagging project from Amsterdam Monuments. And here we also guide the crowd a little. We ask them in 6 different steps to answer a question about this image. So this is, for example, what's the address? Do you see a monument that has a specific name? Do you know who the photographer is? Or can you give a general description? And this is to help volunteers guide in their work, but it also helps to transfer the metadata into our own systems, because these fields correspond with the different steps. And also here we transfer the added information directly into our online system. So this is our image bank, and you can see that all the descriptions are added right after the work of the volunteers is being controlled. And this is one of our latest inventions. It's georeferencing. I think most people will be familiar with it. We put all our digitized charts online and ask the public to locate them on the current maps of Amsterdam. They just choose different markers on both maps, and then you can preview to see if it fits the image. You can use a transparency slider to make sure that it's okay. If it's not okay, you just move around with the markers and try again. And also this feature we added to our image bank, so people can see the results of the georeferencing project. And these are our notary acts. It's an archive of 3 kilometers, so even scanning is a huge project in itself, but let alone indexing. So we came up with 2 crowdsourcing projects, one in which we asked to discern the different acts or deeds. One inventory number of the notary archive can easily be 1,500 scans, so discerning these acts is already a huge effort. And in a second project, we asked to index these acts. And this is also a completely new type of project, because these are not lists of names. People have to read through all the text and then highlight the names and enter them in the right field. And we ask for names and locations, so they actually work on the scans and not on a specific list. And we made a new searching tool also to present the results quickly to our users. And when I talk about VeleHanden, I always get 2 questions. First is, who are all those people who participate? And second, how do you know that their work is accurate? So I will answer them in advance, and lunch will be there soon. To start with the crowd. We were lucky that our idea of crowd creation was such a success. So we were soon past the problem of making a crowd. But the important challenge remains to maintain the crowd. And of course, we have thought a lot about it, and we still think the work has to provide three things to the crowd. We call it 3 Ps. It's pleasure, praise, and profit. So first of all, it must be fun to use the website. It must be user-friendly and really, really fast. The task itself must be fun, like a puzzle. And we heard people saying that it is addictive. The mechanism that after saving one scan, you immediately get a new one, it will increase the feeling of addiction. And secondly, you must feel and be told that the work you're doing is appreciated very much, not only by the archives, but by all historical researchers now and in the future. Working on VeleHanden is a socially relevant activity, and it may sound obvious, but this is an important feature of all volunteer work. They have to feel appreciated, and praise is a simple but important reward. And important is also to show the results. I just explained that we try to transfer it as soon as possible. And last but not least, you have to gain something as well. At VeleHanden, you receive what we call VeleHanden points, to be compared to air miles. And these points are not worth a lot. An estimate would be that you earn 50 euro cents an hour. But still, it is a sign of appreciation, and we learn this is important to our crowd. Each archive can decide how many points they want to reward their volunteers and can decide what kind of products they offer. We have sold books for points, organized workshops, guided tours, and even a lottery where people could spend their points. And although it is not a decisive factor to participate, it is important as a reward. And next to these points, we periodically organize events. For example, we threw a party to celebrate the ending of our largest project so far. It took us 3 years to complete. And of course, we had beer, wine, snacks, and an interesting program, but we also had a personalized artwork made by a Dutch artist, Jan Rothuizen, for one of our special volunteers. You see them on the right. And another time we went with a small group on a canal boat to get inspired for the project on localizing these Amsterdam monuments. And we do not organize such events often, but it is important to say thank you in an offline environment as well. So pleasure, praise, and profit are the key factors which we will continue to monitor and develop to maintain our crowd, in hope we can keep them as enthusiastic, involved, and hardworking as they are now. And having said all this, I always feel a bit embarrassed to talk about a crowd. These people gain so much knowledge about our archives and collection that it feels better to talk about fellow experts. We have people who have roamed the city to find that particular staircase on a building and have made a study of architectural details, things that me and my colleagues would simply not be able to do. And as with all volunteer projects, most of the work is done by a small group of people, and we try to be extra careful with these volunteers. Listen to what they are saying or asking. Try to give them extra tasks or responsibilities and try to figure out what their motivation is. You can learn a lot from them. And through the years, we also noticed that different tasks attract different crowds. This was apparent especially with our georeferencing project. People who had not been active at all at VeleHanden before suddenly were addicted to georeferencing. They simply liked old maps or had worked with geospatial software in their own work. And this project was our all-time record. 5,000 maps were processed within 2 weeks. And I mentioned some impressive figures, but we all know that quantity is not as important as quality. The question most asked is crowdsourcing prone to error? And the plain and simple answer is no. Most volunteers are really precise. They know how important their work is because they often use the results themselves. And moreover, we build in control mechanisms, like the double entry and control system. If there's an indexing project, each scan is indexed by 2 different persons and the versions are being matched. So there are 6 eyes looking at the same scan, because afterwards there's still a control person. And in the old-fashioned way, when we made an index in-house, there were only 2 eyes looking at a scan. And on top of that, there are a lot of accessible ways to ask for help, on the forum or through the buttons I showed you below the scans. And I will definitely not argue that crowdsourcing is error-free, but it is definitely not prone to error. If we see mistakes in our system, it usually appears to be an error in the original documents. And here I give you 2 examples of that from the same population registers. You would think that Jan Hendrik Leers could not be born in 1709 and that the volunteer made a mistake, because this would mean that he would be at least 144 years old. But the document supports the volunteer and reveals the mistake of the civil servant at the time. And the same goes for Hendrika Vogelzang, who seems to have been born on a date that never existed, the 30th of February. So my main message for today is that the crowd is invaluable. In the past few years, crowdsourcing has been internalized by our archive, and we cannot imagine our daily work without it. The volunteers contribute heavily to our mission. They do their work fast, precise, and with never-ending enthusiasm. And when I have seen a crowdsourcing project fail, luckily never our own, it was in my opinion due to a lack of attention. The crowd is not a workforce that you set to a task and then you just wait until it's done. The crowd is more of a fan base who is willing to spend time in working with your collection to help you or other fans out. It is important to show that their effort is appreciated, that you take them seriously, and that you keep showing that you are available for questions and suggestions. And not just when you start a project, but all the way until the end. And that is why we always have a party when a project reaches the finish line. And finally, I hope to have shown that new developments, technology, and working closely together with a software company really can help archives to develop and achieve a mission that fits the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to show us how we should create our fellow experts, we should say, right now. And, Entschuldigung, jetzt wechsle ich ganz kurz über. Sind noch Fragen? Alle haben Hunger.
Do you ever have a deadline for your crowdsourcing project? And if you have one, what happens if the crowd doesn't reach the deadline?
We didn't actually have deadlines. You have a sort of an idea how long it will take, and usually they're faster than you would imagine. And I must admit that the project we did that took 3 years, it was really the maximum to ask. You saw that the entries were declining because it was difficult to reach the finish line. So I think that the right amount of work for a project is kind of crucial for failure or success in your crowdsourcing project. But we never had the problem that a project didn't end in time.
I was just wondering because we have a never-ending project, and we were wondering how to motivate our volunteers.
Okay, can you tell more about it? Oh, well, I must say that.
Like, how do you motivate someone you don't pay? As you said, he's not, or he or she's not in the workforce. You just can't put that on it and say it has to be done by that point of time.
Yeah. Well, then I get back to it has to be fun. There must be something that is an intern motivation that people want to contribute to. And secondly, they have to see that it's worthwhile working on it. So you have to show or tell them what it's meant for. And what I said about the crowdsourcing project that failed, it was, I have one in mind that was really, really difficult. You had to enter a lot of information that was really hard to understand. It was a printed source, so when you were entering it, you thought, this must be easier with OCR. So then, and there was no visibility of the work the people did at all. So it was very difficult. It wasn't really clear why they chose crowdsourcing, and it wasn't really clear where the results were used for. So I think that is really important to show. And yeah, with, as I said, the notary archives, it's 3 kilometers of archive, so it's sort of never-ending as well. And I think we will discover the do's and don'ts in the long run of that project.
Thank you.
How many persons are involved at the Staatsarchiv with the VeleHanden project?
Of the staff, so
Yes.
That's me and my colleague, so 2.
So you're doing the whole quality control?
No, that's the volunteers as well. But I am there for if they have different questions, or I'm just their contact person.
So we have reached our break, and again I would like to thank you for your explanation.
Yeah.
And